Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Future of BizTech. I'm your host, JC Granger. I have with me here Andy Zambito. He's a Chief Sales Officer of the Americas for Creatio. Andy, thank you so much for being on the show. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. Really pleased to be here. As you mentioned, Andy Zambito. I'm the Chief Sales Officer at Creatio now, but I've spent about 20 plus years in tech and tech sales as individual contributor and all the way up through leadership at a number of different firms. And my charter here is running our go-to-market teams and growing that for all of the Americas regions.
Wonderful. And what does Creatio do? I mean, I was on the website, we talked a little about it, but there's a lot going on there.
Sure.
Specifically, how do you help companies in that B2B space? What is that Creatio offers?
Well, it all starts from the vision, right? And the vision of Creatio is enabling a world where everyone can automate business ideas in minutes. And so what we're doing is trying to enable the world of business users, professionals, to become citizen developers rather than this long line of IT that you need to get into and work faster to deliver a higher degree of value. If you look back at the world today, we have about 1.7 billion knowledge workers who are creating a demand for about 500 million applications. Mm-hmm. And there are only about 25 million developers in the world today to do that. So this is the movement that we're in. And the way we deliver on this value is through the world of low code, no code, which is, for the audience who may not know, this is taking the ability for a business user in a drag and drop interface. You've probably seen this in some commercial operations for consumers, to be able to build business applications, automate business processes, and really drive the business at a faster pace. We focus heavily on business operations. Customer relationship management is an area that we do a lot of our focus as well.
So let's talk about that drag and drop, because I know what you're talking about. I've seen these things before. Most people who visualize drag and drop are looking at like website editors, right? They think of like Wix, right? Or something like that. One of those things where they can make a website and with the drag and drop. So people are familiar with that idea, I believe, and they're not too intimidated by that because that's been very prevalent. So maybe educate the audience how similar in usage is that when people make a quick website drag and drop versus what Creatio does. Is it that simple? Is it a little more complicated? Do you have to have a certain base foundation of knowledge first before you can do that? Or can a layman go in and say, well, I need these things automated and I can go like this, and then it works? Like, how to, walk me through it.
Absolutely. So think about this in a number of ways. How often does a business professional, back when we used to drive into work, right? They get on their commute and they have this amazing idea of something they want to make reality. Then they get everybody around the table. They say, let's do all of this. And the first thing that happens is you see hands go up. Well, we need 6 months and $1 million to do that. Or we can't do that because these things you want to touch, they're sacred to some other group. So what we're actually enabling is everything from, if you can imagine drawing a flow chart on a whiteboard and then saying, I want to empower each of these elements to do certain things, whether they be instruct an individual, interact with data. This is truly the environment that we're in. And so I don't just think of it as building apps, but also in that automation of process. Now, when you talk about the skill set, certainly as this market evolves, I think we see a movement that kind of low code and no code will merge. There's a reason there are kind of two terms for it now. People are coming at this differently. In a low code environment, it is a little bit more oriented toward a business analyst that has a deeper understanding of their business and is tech friendly, if you will, and is really about bringing these kind of composable parts together. No code is you're thinking a complete drag and drop environment. But what we've seen in the industry is that no code providers are starting to have to add more low code capabilities to enable a higher order capabilities, and low code providers are quickly driving towards no code. So we see in the future the merging of this.
Well, so you even got ahead of me a little bit on one of my questions.
Okay, good.
No, I mean, it's great. I love it. I always ask kind of like, what's the future of the industry? And you're already headed there.
Yeah.
So keep driving, keep going.
Yeah. So when today, if you have that business idea and you want to, produce that application, you can. What we see oftentimes is this ranges from business specific applications. We see a lot of demand of thinking I need something for, and that's why I said CRM earlier, marketing, sales, service. And so what Creatio does is we've built purpose-built applications on top of this framework and platform to truly accelerate your time to market and your ability to deliver that. But you also have this kind of horizontal pull that happens in an organization once you grab onto the idea that, well, wait, if we can automate that process, I have these 14 other things in human resources and in finance and other areas
it just expands.
Yeah, that are just routine things. And you'd be surprised at how many processes really can be put onto a template. And that you think about whether it be something like employee onboarding as an example, customer onboarding, expense management, all these things are merely just processes in a business that you could articulate what you want to do. And rather than getting into an IT queue and hiring a developer to do that, we want to empower you to be able to do that.
So how does this compare to something out there that people use a lot, like Zapier, for example, right? You go to Zapier, you type in what the app is here and which one you want to connect it with. It has a drop down of saying, okay, when this action happens, tell it to do that one. So it connects obviously two different applications with preset, if then scenarios, right? It's very easy to use for anyone. Does your drag and drop, I imagine if you're inside the interface, is it basically like doing Zapier without having to manually go in and do that? Like, is it already preloaded? Like, how does that work? Is it hosted through Creatio? Just, I guess, visually, if somebody is using Creatio, what do they see when they're trying to automate these processes from their other softwares and systems?
So yeah, let me try to unpack this a little bit bigger for you. So when you're thinking about Zapier and you're talking about kind of that API connection between two data sources, this is a much broader vision. Now we certainly enable the ability to call web services and do different capabilities, but if you think about it this way, we have this low-code platform that I shared with you, which allows you in a studio environment, as we'd mentioned, to kind of build those applications. And at the heart of that is the business process automation. But on top of that, we have, so what a lot of folks will say is we have built these purpose-built CRM solutions as well. So if you think about, so customers will see different things, if you will. Whether it's lead management or sales automation, these are areas where the solution is a Gartner leader, right? But it also is built on this capability set. So in that environment, I have my traditional CRM, my Salesforce automation. And if you ask somebody who's ever used something like that, and you say, did they enjoy it? Was it easy to use? Was it easy to change and modify? That's a paradigm we're changing there, right? So for the ability for those business power users to go in there and make all those changes, outside of that, it will look like if you're just in the studio environment, it really will be like dragging and drawing your process out and empowering that node. And to your point of, I'm going to call this web service and answer these questions, and this is what I want it to do, and how I want that. And now I want to automate and push a message to this individual, all those things that you can imagine.
Sure. So let's switch gears a little bit here. I'm a marketing guy by nature. I do a lot of B2B stuff. And so what is Creatio doing to get their name out there, right? How big is Creatio already? And then what types of things do you guys focusing on from a marketing standpoint and maybe even sales, since you're the chief sales officer?
Sure.
That's really, really pushing that, across the nation or the world.
Well, besides obviously doing podcasts like this to get the word out, there's quite a few things. The company has been around, has an established presence, right? This is about 650 employees on a global basis. And we are a digital first company, right? So one of our big messages in the space we occupy is about digital transformation and helping organizations get there. And so for us, one of the biggest things we do is digital events, right? And this has been a big push, obviously, in the days of COVID. I think a lot of people went into that realm, but this is something we've been doing for quite some time. We also do a lot of experimentation, right? Our technology, we use our own technology for just about everything we do. So all of our sales and marketing and everything else is managed through that. So we have the traditional routes, as you'd expect for an enterprise software organization, but we do lean heavily on forward-thinking views of this and the digital events.
Okay. And then how do you how about this? Actually, let's talk about this. Who's your optimal client, right? Are these small businesses, medium-sized, enterprise? What industries typically really benefit from this more than others? Who's that perfect, avatar client for you?
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic question. So there are a couple aspects to this. One of the big powers of what we do is that it does scale vertically, both functionally and technically, but also commercially. So this does address needs, whether it be SMB all the way to Fortune 100 or government. And we are a global organization operating in 110 countries with a really extensive of partner community. So from a ideal customer, from a size and scope, I would say that my teams particularly spend an awful lot of time in that commercial and enterprise space, right? When you think about the industries, we track about 23 industries that we focus on, but the industries that benefit most are the ones that have high complexity. Because if you think about, again, what we're doing, you have complex CRM solutions, as you can imagine, that have a lot of challenges. The more interaction there is between departments, we see these challenges between front and middle and back office systems, that kind of data drop off in those gray areas. So when you have process intensive, complex industries, they'll see a tremendous amount of value, both in our off-the-shelf solutions as well as the studio, and that tends to be things you'd expect, like financial services, manufacturing, distribution, logistics, telco, pharma, you name it, in those areas.
So let me ask you this here. My audience, they really like to kind of know what's coming down the pipeline, right? A little sneak preview, if you will. Now, to help you out, we're recording this, but probably won't go on for a couple months, right? So it won't be too proprietary. But
okay,
what's coming down the pipeline for Creatio? What are some of the pet projects that is going to set you guys even more apart here, that are going to be coming out here in the near future?
So what's really interesting is it's funny you mentioned when this is coming out. So actually, even just this week, we just had a major release. So there's I talk about that, but then we can go in the future. A lot of the area of focus for us is when I was talking about kind of low code and no code and the merging of this, and the enablement of citizen developers, we want to enhance that even more. And so when you're thinking about, you're in marketing, the front end look and feel of things really matters, right? And the adoption of technology and usability is paramount for any IT project inside of a business. So the power that we're putting out for folks to be able to modify the look and feel down to their really highly tailored nature, right? Because one of the reactions you have when you talk to people about low code and no code, they often want to say is, where's the limit of that? And you have to actually get under the covers and do real coding, that only works for maybe something kind of simple. And that's actually not true at all. And so not only is there a ton of power underneath but we want to bring more and more of that to the front end. Additionally, I'll say that like anyone that's working right now, there's a lot of push in data science and machine learning and things of that nature. In our world, for organizations, if you think about call centers looking to use that for intelligent routing, or a sales representative in a bank looking for what's the next best offer that I should make, utilizing the data that we have at hand, because we're able to bring together such disparate sets of data. Our platform is built on a unified database and data schema. So unlike a lot of business platforms that get built off of, I've built one thing, I've bought another, I've acquired this, and we have to try to cobble them together in order to have a view of my customer, what's important to me. That's a default position on our platform. So anything that you're building off of that, or any of these vertical elements that you would purchase, are all taking advantage of that. So that's another big push for us, is in these verticalized solutions that are becoming more highly tailored to your needs, which is all about what we're about, which is about accelerating time to market, right? Can we accelerate you taking that idea that you have, that real business value you want to deliver? Can we make that faster? Can we make that more affordable? Can we future-proof, really, and allow you to not be kind of locked in and be able to adjust?
See, now that I like, and especially since, anything you can do to make sure, like you said, future-proof, like that's the big deal, obviously, right? And you already kind of answered my next question, about how the future of that industry, you see low code and no code really kind of starting to merge, which is a really interesting concept there. So let's ask something a little personal about you, actually. I ask this one every now and then. When you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up? And then, is that what you are now? And if not, how did it get there, right? I'm curious. I want to know about Andy.
Far from it. I wondered, I heard some of your previous interviews. I wondered if I would get that question.
Yeah,
so
every now and then.
I'm probably about as far as you could get from where I started. So as a kid, I probably would have answered that as, Indiana Jones, right? And I got as far as, getting my first degree in, ancient and medieval European history, right? So, okay, I started down that path. I took a number of twists and turns in my early days. Was going to pursue the military, and I was pursue finance, And ultimately, what I found was I was always coming back to whatever I did was touching technology. Even in finance, it was working in a tech portfolio. And so I had the opportunity. I kind of plucked from that because I had a unique set of things in my background that somebody said, we'd like to bring you in on the sales side to talk about all these things that you've been doing on the back end. This was back in the days when, the bubble was about to burst and everything was custom. And that was my first foray into it. And I'll have to say it was one of the most challenging, one of my early jobs, one of the most challenging one in sales, but that also kind of embraced, for me, it was selling artificial intelligent decision support systems. So the concept of, I'm going to sell you a piece of technology that I can't show you, I can't really, demonstrate any of it, and you're going to feed data into it. And it's going to give you guidance that will yield results, say 6 months down the line. And trust me, it's going to be great. And it would. I mean, it would do these things, but it was that really kind of shows you if you're cut out for this space. And then from then on, the rest was history.
Well, it's funny. It's funny how I like how your story about you wanting to be came from a movie.
Yeah.
Because it's because mine did too. Like, when I saw Top Gun as a kid.
All right.
All I ever wanted to be was a fighter pilot, right? And actually, I got to tell you, I got pretty close. I got to the point where I got to fly Air Force trainer fighter jet.
Wow.
Right? Okay.
Amazing.
But that's pretty far along, right? In the end, it wasn't for me. I'm such a creative person, and I think I realized last second that there's not a whole lot of room for creativity in the cockpit of a fighter plane.
Right.
At least there shouldn't be. Right? Like, how about this? If you're forced to be creative in a fighter plane, you're being shot at. Okay. Like,
exactly.
And so, it's very methodical. They always say 99% routine, 1% chaos. And I was like, I got to tell you, I like a little more chaos in my life than that. So I ended up going, private sector and, and marketing and whatnot. But mine came from a movie too. Just like yours, Indiana Jones. So that's cool.
And I found that for me, when I was in the office doing this, that the times I enjoyed the most when I was doing analysis, whatever it was when I finally got out of the office to talk to the business leaders that I was, doing, whether it was underwriting or portfolio management, whatever it might have been, and talking to them about what their real challenges were. One of the other kind of big themes that's happening in our space right now is all around, digital transformation. But that's a very overused term.
Yeah, it's really broad.
It's been around for, 15, 20 years. And, I think what most organizations have been doing is what I would call digitization, right? I'm going to take my server and put it in the cloud. I'll take paper and I'll put it electronically. And there was a meme that went around, last year, which was very telling, when organizations were tasked with saying, who in your business is driving digital transformation the most? And the answer was COVID. So it wasn't a person, it was this event that everybody was imposed onto. And, an interesting study that we just released was our first annual kind of state of low code, no code, right? Basically surveying 1,000 business professionals to understand their perspective on this. But it was under the umbrella, if you will, of digital transformation. And, the telling thing for us is, I think, 95% of organizations didn't slow down or stop their efforts in digital transformation, but yet on the other side of that, only 10% of business processes they felt had been automated, and that about 43% saying that it was the lack of skilled resources that was blocking them. It kind of goes back to that first argument I made, and why the space we occupy, why Gartner says this is going to be 60% of business applications will be built on this in the next several years, because there's really no alternative, right? The world has kind of pushed everybody to this place where, if you suddenly can't bring people into your branch, what are you going to do in order to attract them, right? You're in the marketing side, right? You have to completely come up with all new ways to still hit those growth metrics. And for me, what's exciting about it is it really shows you how much process is at the heart of what differentiates one organization from another, right? If you think about it, whether it be, you mentioned planes, so whether you're an airline, right, and your internal processes with each other and your external processes, at the end of the day, you're selling a seat from a destination. Both planes will get you there, but why do those organizations end up having vastly different valuations, different turnarounds of their planes, different customer experience? It's all about the processes that they have and how they manage it. So that's, for me, one of the personal things that attracted me to Creatio is we're at the heart of not just digital transformation, but this is really the differentiator for organizations, right? You can proliferate apps, and they're a means to an end, and they're essential and they're critical. but they don't yield the result.
Mhm.
Right. And so that I may have taken off a tangent, but you inspired me with that thought of the plane took me there
Yeah.
with the thought, and what makes it exciting.
So let me ask you this here. You've been in business a while. You've had a lot of experience with your company that you're with
Mhm.
now, and I'm sure ones before. What is either the best advice you've ever been given, business wise, or the best advice that you know how to give to the audience? Anyone listening?
Sure. Well, I learned this the hard way in both work and business, so it became something that I now kind of try to impart to others, which it's not enough to be right.
Mm.
Right, whether it's in your personal life or your business life. So in the world for me with sales or the company, right, you could have the best product and the best price and the best people and all those things, but it's there's more to it than that. In understanding that and what drives that, both in your personal relationships, whether it's you and your partner, or whether it's you and a customer that you're interacting with. And I think if you embrace that and then kind of get underneath it, you will get to better results. So that's just certainly a life one for me.
Well, Andy, I really appreciate you being on the show. How can people, anyone listening, at their company who might see that Creatio could help them, how do they find you guys as a company? And then how could someone reach out to you personally if they needed to for any kind of
Sure.
partnership stuff or whatever?
I appreciate the opportunity to say this. So obviously, creatio.com is our website. You mentioned how are we getting word out there. We're fairly prolific in our content. So we generate a tremendous amount of content, whether it be YouTube channels, articles, the rest. We're thought leaders in the space. We welcome you to check that out. Certainly, I'm open to hearing from any of the audience, and I can be reached at a.zambito@creatio.com.
That's wonderful. Andy, thanks again for being on the show. And I actually look forward to checking it out myself because, I'm kind of that software geek, right? You know me.
I certainly appreciate it. Well, thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks a lot, Andy. Bye-bye.
Take care.